Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of the film Selah on the Spades, which has just dropped on Amazon. So this is a film that premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. So I was quite excited to see this. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit skeptical with some of the promos and the trailers because the trailers and the promo definitely had a certain vibe to it, a certain quirky independent vibe from it, which I was a bit skeptical about because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And the film was written by Tyarisha Poe, and this is actually her first feature film. But yeah, I was excited about this, especially it being a black female filmmaker and a black female lead who was of a deeper skin tone. I was definitely here for it. I was definitely excited for it, but I was a bit apprehensive about it after seeing the promos and the trailers. Not gonna lie. But the story is a teen-centered film. I'm not really sure if I would personally call it a coming of age, but it centers around Selah, and she's in her senior year of high school, and she's looking for somebody to carry on her legacy. And in terms of what this legacy is, at this school, which is a private school, there is like a social hierarchy, and there's different groups that classify themselves as factions, almost like a government. They all offer different things, different experiences, whether that is just harmless fun or some illegal fun. And there's some rivalries between a few of these groups, but they all have a common understanding. They even have like their own government set up where they have meetings and stuff, which you'll see in the film if you watch it. I usually talk about the narrative first, but today I'm going to talk about the characters first. Selah is the main character, and she's definitely a character who you focus on the most in the film. I'd say she's a pretty interesting character, and I think for the simple fact is that she looks harmless, she sounds harmless, but she is this ruthless, power-hungry criminal. And it was lovely to see that unravel and see your opinion change, because at the beginning of the film, because of your proximity to her, you're rooting for her character. She's the main character, so automatically you're going to root for the protagonist. But as the film goes on, you start to get a little bit suspicious of her. And I think by the end, I was just like, well, she's definitely the villain here. And I think by the end of it, a lot of people might not like her character, respect her character maybe, but I think a lot of people might not like her character by the end, despite initially liking her at the beginning, which I thought was quite an interesting journey to go down. So I think Lovely Simone, the person who plays Selah, did a solid job with this character. There were some parts where I would have liked to see a bit more development in terms of her character and her emotional performances, but when they got it right, it was great to see. But when they got it right, it was great to witness. My favourite character to watch, and who I think was probably the most developed in this series, was probably Portia, who Selah takes under her wing, hoping that she will carry on her legacy. Seeing her change and get drawn into Selah's web, and her battle with her own standards and integrity, and the need to belong somewhere, the need to feel important, the need to belong somewhere, the need to feel the need to belong somewhere, the need to feel important. And I think together Selah and Portia as a unit was really interesting to watch. I feel like as a duo, definitely had a lot of chemistry. Their conflicts, their clashes felt very organic. The interactions between them and the conflicts between them, I think, were the most interesting parts of the film. Jharrel Jerome is also in the film, but we don't really see much of him, to be honest. Besides Selah and Portia and their whole relationship, I think everybody else was kind of neglected in terms of development and time put into that character. Key relationship that could have been developed way more than it was Selah's relationship with her mother, because I feel like if we look into stuff like backstory, the way that Selah is, why Selah is so power hungry is because she has no power at home. At home she's restricted, and we see her go home and we see her entire demeanour change, and we see her interact with her mother. But that interaction didn't really give... We hear her on the phone a lot. We hear her on the phone a lot with her, scolding her, being incredibly strict with her. But when we see them interact in person, there's a lack of emotional development there, and therefore a lack of emotional connection for me. So it was hard for me to sympathise with Selah's character because there was a lack of empathy within the storytelling. So I definitely would have liked that to have been developed a bit more. Again, it kind of just felt like, okay, Selah is this way, we need to have a backstory for her, we're just going to throw that in. Obviously, Poe is the director and the writer, and I think watching the film, you could tell what characters she liked the most when she was writing the script. You can definitely tell she likes Selah and Portia the most, and that's why she put more time and effort into them. And I guess it kind of felt like, okay, these other characters, we kind of need them to carry the narrative along, but I don't really care about them, so I'm not really going to put that much effort into them. So I would have liked to see a lot more development with the other characters, especially with Bobby's character. Selah and Bobby are meant to have this rivalry throughout the film, but the rivalry felt a little bit stale. I didn't really believe it, I wasn't really invested in it, and it kind of felt like a sideshow storyline. I felt like the narrative was a bit bare and a bit empty. It kind of felt like it was a skeleton and it just needed a bit more meat on it. Obviously, we have the beginning, we have the middle and the end, but sometimes I just felt a little bit lost. I think a lot of things were told to us, but we didn't really see much. It felt a little bit empty. It felt like there was some bits missing. And I feel like low-key, the narrative kind of felt like it was going around in circles. I'm not really sure if even at the end we actually went anywhere with this narrative. So I think the narrative is definitely the weakest part of this film in terms of the style and the cinematography. The cinematography was solid. I feel like there was a lot of scenes that were shot that were really beautiful, like when they were running away from, there was one scene where they were running away from a shutdown party and they were running and they had balloons, and there was this sweet nostalgic score in the background. That kind of depiction of carefreeness was done really well, and there was a lot of those shots here and there in the film which I enjoyed, but it wasn't enough to distract from the fact that there wasn't really much of a narrative going on. Overall, the shooting style felt a little bit experimental, very independent debut feature film. Sometimes there was voiceovers, sometimes there wasn't. There was monologue scenes. There were scenes where it was just choreography, not really any acting. I think you might be able to appreciate them from a filmmaking point of view, but I think as a viewer, as an audience member, I wasn't too fond of it. I think overall as a production, I think it shows that the director, the writer has promise. I think they definitely have a bit more promise as a director though, rather than a writer. Obviously it's a teeny film, so I'm assuming this is targeted at teenagers, young adults. As a young adult watching this, I'm not really sure if it's going to hold people's attention. I think after a good half an hour in, I think people are going to start to lose interest because there's not really much, the narrative doesn't really go anywhere, there's not enough there to hold the viewer. And also the ending was a bit lackluster as well. I really hate endings that are not like definitive. So personally, I probably wouldn't prioritize this film. I think it's a good film to watch. It definitely had promise to it. I think it is a film that maybe first time filmmakers would be able to appreciate, to study, but as an entertainment piece, I'm not really sure if this could qualify. For those of you who haven't watched it, let me know if this is or something that you were thinking about checking out. And if you have watched it, let me know what you thought of it. Did you like it? Did you not? Did the narrative work for you? What did you think about the performances, or the style of the film? Taking everything into account, I'm going to give it half marks, 2.5 out of 5. So yeah, subscribe if you haven't yet, and if you have, don't forget to press that notification bell so you know when the next review is dropping. Till next time guys, bye!